All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Mission Impact Series with Tracy and Ty. So, today we're going to be talking about money talks, but can you keep up, right? Because we know that money does a lot of talking, but you have to be able to keep up with the amount of money coming at you or leaving your hands, on a daily basis. So, in part one of Money Talks, but can you keep up? We're going to be talking about budgeting for nonprofits and social enterprises. We're going to discuss budgeting techniques, tips, and best practices for nonprofits and social enterprises. This will include forecasting income and expenses, right? Because I said coming in or going out, right? Understanding cash flow and creating realistic budgets that align with your organization's mission and its goals. And you see Ty's face already, right? Because this is a hot topic. We're always having to talk to people about budgeting. So we're going to talk to you about it today. And hopefully, through our explanation, you get a better understanding of why budgeting is so important. All right, my name is Tracy V. Allen, the owner of Lord, my name is Tracy V. Allen.
You
I know, right? And I'm the owner of Impact Management Group, where I help social entrepreneurs or social impact business to design, build, and fund so that they can live the lifestyles that they desire and impact their community.
Yep, and I am Ty Boone, owner of Ty Boone Enterprises. I work mostly with nonprofit organizations, helping them to move from startup and struggle to sustainability and success. But you know what? Sometimes the money is funny, right? Because and Tracy, you said money talks, right? And I was gonna say, don't say the other part because you know that other part that has the cuss word. And I don't cuss.
Yeah.
But money can get quiet when you're not managing it correctly.
Mhm.
Everything starts with a budget. And that I think that's, for the group of people that I normally work with, I think it's hard for them to understand, you know.
Mhm.
Um, what are your projections? How are you going to bring in revenue? What are you going to spend it on? And how does that make sense against your mission? People are out here, there are a lot of folk out here who are just winging it.
Yeah.
We just want to do the work and we need some money. How much money do you need? What does your operational budget look like? What are your projections for this thing? What are the things that you have to pay for? And what are your plans to pay for it? That's the thing. And especially when you get caught up in grants and fundraising and things, people never think about plans to pay for it. They just think about the fact that they need the money. They don't
Right.
think about the other part. So they'll tell you, well, I got $1 million. We need $1 million. How are you good? So it's going to cost you money to get $1 million.
Mhm.
Like, have you considered those in your expenses in your budget? And usually they don't.
Exactly. And that's something that we talked about. I had someone ask me this week. I was like, I need to see your budget. And they were like, budget? What budget? Right? I was like, the budget for your year. Like, they were like, I don't know how to do that. I was like, well, how are you running your organization if you don't have a budget? She was like, well, how do you create a budget? I said, do you have a budget for your personal expenses? Like what bills do you pay every month? So you have your salary coming in. So you know the source that it's coming from, or the sources if you have more than one job. And then you have all of your expenses, right? So revenue minus expenses. And she was like, oh, but how am I supposed to know that for the organization? Because you know what bills you pay every month, right? And
Mhm.
so it's an estimate. So when we talk about projections or forecasting, that's what we're talking about. What do you expect to make on a quarterly basis and then a yearly basis for the organization based on the efforts that you think or know that you're going to put into the business in that specific year, right? And what are you paying for on a weekly, monthly basis, or quarterly basis? All of the software that you pay for, staff, any incidentals that you would pay for, your insurance, your licenses, your registrations, all of those things go into your budget. And if you're planning on having, because people, I think what really trips people up, Ty, is when they're planning to have some type of event. They were like, but that's not going to be for the whole year. I was like, yeah, so it will be an event budget. It will be a line item in your budget. It's not that serious. You're making more out of it than it actually needs to be made. So you'll have a separate budget for the event, and then you put a line item in your regular organizational budget.
Mhm.
But it helps to keep you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you're spending money and you're spending more money than you're actually bringing in, you're going to be in the red at some point in time. You're going to turn around going, oh my God, I don't know why we're broke. Because you're
Mm-hmm.
spending more than you're bringing in because you did not take the time to create
Mm-hmm.
a budget. And sometimes you're bringing in more money than you even anticipated bringing in, right? And then the money's sitting there when the money could actually be working for you in some other type of
Right.
way,
You're
right?
making
So
it work for
you
you.
really need to understand how your cash flow is going, what's coming in and what's going out. That's what's meant by cash flow. What is
Yeah.
coming in and what's going out. So it's revenue and then expenses.
Mm-hmm. And most people don't even look at that stuff until it's like, we ain't got no
It's
money.
too late.
Like,
Exactly. It's too late.
let me look. Let me scramble and see what's going on. This is something that you're supposed to be looking at frequently. Every month,
Mhm.
taking a look at what did I spend? Did I spend it in the right place? Even I tell people who are coming to me for grant writing, do you have a grant writing budget? Right. If you don't,
I
and
usually know.
it makes sense, right? It's
Yeah.
almost always no. How much do you try?
Right.
Do you have a grant writing budget? Do you have a fundraising budget? Do you have a events budget? Do you have what's your program? But a budget for everything,
Even recruiting,
even
volunteers, you
volunteers.
need to have a budget
Yeah,
because
they're
you have
paying.
to have volunteer appreciation, breakfasts, dinners, whatever, award ceremonies, that type of stuff. So you need to just really sit down and think about what it is before you can do your budget. You need to figure out what it is that you want to accomplish that year. That's why we say it has to be mission aligned and goal aligned, right? So what are your goals for the year? Do your goals align with your mission? And based on what you want to achieve, then you backtrack and you create your budget
Mhm.
from
And of
that.
course, like you said before, how are we going to pay for this? So if I have a volunteer budget, what
Mhm.
source of revenue will cover or sources of revenue because multiple ways to cover
Mhm.
my volunteer budget and your effort, your energy and effort is going to determine whether or not you're going to cover this. It's not going to be,
Right.
you mentioned realistic budget, projections,
Mhm.
setting things when you're not going to be doing no work. You're not going to be working. You're not going to generate $700,000 because you ain't doing no work.
Right.
But what are you going to be doing to generate this revenue to cover the expenses?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's basically how your budget works. It is a necessary component for you to run a successful organization, especially if you're going out there and you're looking for people to donate to your organization. Remember, you don't own it. It's a publicly owned entity, and you're supposed to have a level of transparency where they can ask you to see your budget, right?
Mhm.
I want to know, how do you intend to keep this organization alive for the year? Let me see what your budget looks like. How heavy are your expenses? Where are you getting most of your revenue from? They have the right to ask you that. So you
Mhm.
do need to put a budget together. And if you're going to be doing anything like grant writing or looking to solicit in any way for major gifts or major donations or whatever, those are things that people are going to ask you for. You're going to need it. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's basically it for budgeting, right? Do you have anything else you want to say,
I
Mari?
just want to, stop spending your monies on Snickers and M&Ms if it's not related to your mission. Yeah, I see things like that, right? Like where did the money
Really?
go? Like where did the money go? If you have these miscellaneous expenses,
Mhm,
what does miscellaneous include?
mhm.
You put that in your, as an item, but have that miscellaneous thing still be something that's related to your mission. You're not just wasting money on
Right.
stuff that's not relevant. So you want to make sure that you keep those records tight.
All right. All right. So that's it for part one of Money Talks, but can you keep up? And stay tuned. Next week, we'll have part two, right? You know how we do it.